Why is it that horror always ends up taking us back to ancient Egypt? Let's find out. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Amazing Worlds, where today I'm going to be reviewing the Nyarlathotep Cycle by a bunch of people, a whole host of people. So this is a collection. It's a collection of short stories published by Chaosium being the publishers of the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. And I quite like the idea they have here and a few others. So what it is they've selected short horror stories from a whole array of authors based around the figure of Nyarlathotep, one of the outer elder gods from the Cthulhu mythos, originally created by H.P. Lovecraft. And then they have a whole series. So they have the Nyarlathotep Cycle, they have the Nyarlathotep Cycle, they have the Innsmouth Cycle. So they have a whole books of short stories all centered around a particular theme of the Cthulhu mythos. And it's quite nice. It's short stories, you dip in and out, you read them. They are sort of moderately, cohesively joined together around a certain deity, and it's quite cool. So, in this one here, what we have is 14 short stories plus a couple of sonnets and poems around the figure of Nyarlathotep, the messenger of the gods. Not to be confused with that weird manga of the same name that I didn't know existed until one day I did a Google search and I was shocked by what I found. So, what we have is two stories by Lord Dunsany, which kind of predates Lovecraft, and Lovecraft always talked highly and praised Lord Dunsany and his horror there. We have a few stories by H.P. Lovecraft himself, which I've already got repeated a number of times in my collection there, but here we have Nyarlathotep, Dreams in the Witch House, and the Haunter of the Dark. We also have Dweller in Darkness by August Derleth. Now, August Derleth was one of Lovecraft's inner cycle sort of epistological members, exchanged a lot of letters with Lovecraft over his life, and he was responsible for creating Arkham Publishing House, which collected and popularized the mythos. So even though he takes a lot of flack and he takes a lot of criticism for the reordering of the gods that he did, out of all the copycat pastiche writers in the style of H.P. Lovecraft, to me August Derleth is the one that comes closest and more authentic to the source. So I was happy to see Dweller in Darkness there. And then there are 6 of the tales around ancient Egypt, because they focused on the personalization of Nyarlathotep as Nephren-Ka, the Dark Pharaoh, and the legend and the myth behind the Dark Pharaoh. So we have a story by Robert Bloch, him of Psycho. We have another story by Lynn Carter called Curse of the Black Pharaoh, and then a couple of others around there, but these are the more sort of noteworthy in the collection. Now, overall, obviously the H.P. Lovecraft stories are great, but chances are that if you're a fan, you've already got them already. The August Derleth one is quite good. I was interested in the Lord Dunsany one because he's so talked about in the Lovecraft circle that I was toying with the idea of buying one of his books or short story collections, but I'm glad I didn't, and I got a taste for it here. And I have to really say, I didn't enjoy it, I didn't like it, I didn't like the style, didn't like what he was doing there. There was not a lot of horror there. He sort of creates his own pantheon of gods there, but there's not a lot of horror. The August Derleth, like I said, is quite good. Lynn Carter as well, that was a good find. I think he wrote his in the 60s. So at the same time, apart from having a loose thematic connection, all these stories also feel like a journey of the mythos through time. So kind of pre-HPL to the apogee during the HPL publishing years to afterwards, and what came next and much later, even in the 80s and 90s and so on. So I think possibly these kind of collections, I'll pick a few more every now and then because I love the mythos and a lot of the stuff around them. I think there is enough good material here to make it worth your while if you are familiar with the mythos and you want to keep on falling down that rabbit hole. Possibly, I wouldn't say this is an entry point into the mythos, more of an extension, and particularly if you play the role-playing game, a lot of ideas for campaigns and scenarios here. One of the stories in particular, I think it was the Link Carter one, Curse of the Black Pharaoh, pretty much got a feel of the mummy type thing. So you got your your Egyptologists that make some discoveries, some curse of the pharaoh that chases them, the mummy that comes back to London chases. So pretty much the story of the mummy there, which was kind of got the feeling like I've read this before. I don't know where. And then there's that question of who came first and whatnot and all that kind of stuff. So pretty much this is all I've got for today. A nice little dip into the psychological horror of the mythos. I will probably be picking next the Ithaqua one. I enjoy these things, and if you weren't aware that they exist, give them a go. I don't think they are available on digital, ebook, Kindle format, which would have been great because I think it's the kind of books that for a couple of quid you could just have in the Kindle and have there as a palate cleanser between books. It's unfortunate, but I quite like them, and I find the artwork sort of in keeping with what's going on. So, as usual, thank you so much for watching. Please, if you haven't done so, like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. Take loads and loads of care, and I'll see you soon. Bye!